This is another episode of Standup Comedy, your host and MC, celebrating 40-plus years on the fringe of show business. Stories, interviews, and comedy sets from the famous and not so famous. Here's your host and MC, Scott Edwards.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another show. I am so excited. I'm down here in Hollywood, California. All right. It's actually Burbank. But I have three of my oldest friends in comedy joining me today. Here in the show, we have Peter Gualke.
Thank you.
Jaz Kaner.
Thank you.
And Bob Worley.
It's me, folks. It's great to be here.
They're all in the house.
Why does Bob get more applause?
Yeah, Bob.
Well, that was for everybody.
I like how it was silent until my name. And then, oh, yes, Bob's there.
No, it's exciting to have all of you here, and we've all. I've done interviews one-on-one with each of you, so some of your background has already been shared with the audience. But getting together in this, what I call the comedy roundtable, is extra fun for me because we get a chance to share stories and stuff that you guys have done together. You've all worked together from time to time. So comedy, stand-up comedy, has been something that we chose as a career and went into. What kind of got you going? When did you?
Well, I didn't know we were going to start right away with a heavy question. I thought we'd go, hey, how you guys doing anyway?
How you been?
This is like an old-timer show. Let's, quick, before these guys die, let's get them on tape.
What do you have for breakfast?
Sorry about that, Scott. Go ahead.
No. I'll put it a different way. When you were getting started in comedy, how did you find stage time? Because you did kind of come up in the wave of stand-up, but were you doing open mics? Were you working A-rooms initially? Were you doing bowling alleys?
Hey, let's get some irrelevant talent together and get their take on things. Is that us?
Oh, that is us. That is us.
Well,
at least it's me.
I think we all got our start at Laughs Unlimited. That's where we practiced everything because they weren't paying anything. So
ouch! Jaz got the correct answer.
It
Bob,
is true.
Let's start with Bob. Bob, where did you first start hitting the stages?
Probably Westwood Comedy Store, mostly.
Ooh, you started big.
Yeah, that was the satellite room of the.
Well, you don't know
store.
when you're starting out. You don't know. At least I didn't. I was an idiot, so I just went over and signed. Oh, I'm going to go up, and of course I bombed. So,
Jaz, were you
miscellaneous bars in Honolulu, and then the Don Ho Show.
Oh God.
So that's right. For those that don't remember Jaz's one-on-one interview, he is born and raised in Hawaii. I didn't know you started doing comedy though in Hawaii.
Oh yeah.
And there weren't a lot of clubs per se.
No, there was a place called Groucho's, which was in the footer of a condo in Waikiki. I would do breaks. I'd played music for years before that. So I would go back to the old clubs where I played music. Hey guys, it's me. Oh yeah, you want to sit in? You want to play bass? No, let me do your break. I just want to do 15 minutes. And
so you kind of, and again, Jaz Kaner's a comic musician, always had comedy and music in his set, but you were doing music and then converted over to stand up. But you always had music in your shows. So that was kind of great. You could combine both those art forms.
Pays to be a hack.
To bring it all together.
It's got to be nice to be working on an island because those one-nighters where you have those driving gigs, like out here driving to Riverside, is like, oh my gosh, where is this place? Am I still in the state of California? Where are we?
That was always the nightmare, though, showing at a club and the middle act before you has a guitar. Oh my God.
Well, they just do like everybody always did to me. Oh, why don't you close? You got the guitar.
Yeah.
Richard Jenny did that to me. I got showcases coming in. Why don't you go ahead and close? Fuck. Richard Jenny for a week.
Peter, where did you start doing stand-up?
Well, it was just like coffee, like McCabe's Guitar Shop.
Oh, right. Okay.
And then like this place called the White House near... It's where the Zucker brothers and those guys did a live show, and they had like a little off night where they do.
Where was this?
This is near West LA, near Panama Park. No, near Rancho Park.
Back in the old days.
Actually, the last time I was there, after that they tore the place down. The White House.
Peter Gualke was here.
Yeah, this is the last guy that's going to perform here.
But
Gualke tore the house
my
down.
point of bringing it up and trying to start this conversation is that all three of you had terrific careers that were based in the art form of stand-up comedy. You all went off and did different things. But those early days, getting stage time was difficult and part of the process. Then you ended up working A rooms, and all of you were headliners. So definitely professionals.
Art form.
Yes, it's an art form. Sorry.
Yeah, we did it for the art.
I think Pete actually just would go up on stage and just paint something, and that would be
that's
his
what
whole
he
act.
You laugh, but Kevin Nealon actually had in his set.
That was a great bit.
He would go up and do the charcoal thing.
That's great.
Yeah.
That was a great
Those pieces now sell for millions. All that other work he did, he's made a fortune off those.
But I just, for me, it's interesting that you got into stand-up comedy. You worked really hard at it. You did your writing wherever you started from. In Peter's case, he was a gymnast, and Jaz was a musician. You ended up being stand-up comics, but it led to a career where that art form, Peter, or doing stand-up led you to other things. Now, Peter is a comedy writer now. You've done TV and movies.
Highly successful.
Yeah, you left out highly successful.
Yeah, highly
As
successful
his
comedy
attorney,
writer.
I have to remind you. Highly.
And just came out with a book, which Unseen America. So you guys should go to Amazon and find that. But my point was,
$12.99.
the comedy
Unseen.
became a big part of your life, and none of you planned that, right? I mean, were you thinking at 10 years old, I want to be a stand-up comic?
No. No. It was actually
I want a lollipop.
It was actually for me, and I'm sure it was the same for these guys, it was an evolving thing,
Yeah.
You kind of do it because back when we started, there were no gigs. There were no clubs.
No, there was not. As a matter of fact, Peter and I used to drive around and do these contests. It was like just an open audition for contests,
Yeah,
music,
it was all
anything.
contest stuff, talent shows.
So we're talking circa 79.
59.
59.
No,
You're not that old.
John. No, it was like
Probably 81,
81.
Yeah, same
something
here.
like
So
that.
we
Yeah,
all
yeah.
started at
Yeah.
the same time, early 80s.
Because
Yeah.
I think Laughs Unlimited was was one of the first clubs, really.
When we opened, it was the 12th club in the country, and that was in 1980.
12.
Yeah,
Yeah.
full-time
How
comedy
did you
club.
even count that? How did you even know that?
Because when I opened, I
Forensics.
did the research. There was the catch, there was the improv, there was a limited number of places that were considered full-time comedy clubs.
Wow.
When we were, because we were at a point where we were just starting to, because the three of us had sort of unique acts. And so in a way, I think we jumped to the middle act place pretty quickly, I
Right,
think.
because they didn't know where to put you.
Yeah. and
Well,
so-
I, as a producer, let me interject. You guys were all really funny, and it makes it tough to follow. In fact, I think that's one of the reasons you became successful headliners is Bob's got as we were joking earlier, a childlike mind and takes comedy down some fun ways. Jaz has his music. You, Peter, were so physical and so unique. Well, I'm just saying he's different than, even in the history of the club.
No, I used to like to say.
Is there anybody like Peter?
No, I used to like to say that I would go up to the edge, and while I'm standing at the edge, I would see Peter run and jump. So that's his act.
Yeah, but we were like, Laughs Unlimited, it was one of those things where you're trying to figure out, like, how do I get into that club? And then you'd ask other people, you go, hey, how'd you get in there, Yeah. And so you were either usually recommended by somebody, a buddy.
Yeah, we kind of went in under the wings.
Yeah,
For me, it was. It's okay.
Well, you were in San Francisco.
I was in San Francisco,
Yeah.
so a lot of those guys worked. I probably worked there more than you guys because
Yeah.
I was driving.
Well, we used to go up there just to get stage time because they had a lot of open micers back then.
yeah.
You could go and
Oh, in the Bay Area, right? Yeah, you
Yeah.
could work 6 clubs in a night if you timed it out. Robin Williams used to do that. He'd make an appearance 6 different clubs in a single night. Just go in, do his stuff, and go out. It was pretty incredible in those days. Well, let's change the direction then. You've all worked the road for a number of years before you shifted, which we'll talk about in a minute. But when you were on the road, was there any particular moments that were extra cool and fun or extra scary and memorable that that you'll have memories that you have memories of that really had an impact on your life or career? Bob?
Well, most of those memories I try to forget because it's either really great or horrible. So I remember Andy Kindler and I worked at a place called the Comedy Barn. Did you guys ever work?
Oh, in Missouri?
Mississippi.
Mississippi, been there.
Mississippi. Yeah, and it's literally a barn.
It was
you
a
pull up
barn.
and go, oh my gosh, it's a barn out in
And
the
this
middle
was
of
the
nowhere.
height of the 80s. Anyone with a barn and a sign that
Right.
said comedy could do it. Yeah.
The worst-
So Andy Kindler.
The worst gig on the planet. I mean, by the end of the week, I was introducing us as Humperdinck and Tom Jones because they didn't care. Hey, Mr. Humperdinck.
You know who I worked there with? Brett Butler.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she kind of fits in.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
How y'all doing? But I'm with Andy Kindler. It's like, hey, it sounds kind of like one of them people from the city.
Yeah, Kindler was definitely that San Francisco type of esoteric act that you have to really either understand or be willing to get into, and that means the audience has to go with it.
Right.
And that would be difficult, I imagine. Jazz, any interesting road stories, good or bad?
Oh, we could just take turns and go around and around this table.
What stands out?
Well, the one in Sacramento, and I think I mentioned it, if I could repeat it in
Sure.
your podcast, the one up in Sacramento with, I'm not remembering. Okay, by the way, the last name, the guy who got me into Laughs Unlimited was Jimmy Celeste.
Oh,
Jimmy
okay.
Celeste.
Very
You
nice
know,
guy.
Jimmy Celeste.
Yeah.
Talked like we always said he was the bastard son of Bob Dylan. I took a bus up there, and that was my, to do a guest set and show my stuff.
Wow, that's commitment, taking a bus.
Yeah. We went on the river. Some nice people invited us on a river rafting. Oh, you want to go on the, what is that, a river up there?
American River.
American River, yeah. And middle of summer, hot, and never mind, the water's 40 degrees, the sun's 110, so those are your choices. But we get on, they picked, a nice married couple picks us up, and I'll remember the guy's name. It's in the, just go back to the other podcast. I had it in front of me written down. We both get in the car and we have to pick up some people. And they pull up at a house and we go, okay, let's see what's going to happen. Girls in bikinis start coming out of the house. We go, okay, all right, we're going rafting. Okay. And the other comic dressed up like an Indian and made a bow and arrow, and he was shooting at the other rafters, which I thought was very inventive. There was a kid, I mentioned this, there was a kid, and for the price of a six-pack of beer, he was like 13 years old. He would ride his bike off the cliff into the river for you.
Just to entertain the guys.
Just to entertain you, yeah.
Cruising the river.
I wonder
that's
what
funny.
became of him.
But so this sounds like a fun memory of interacting with audience members while on a gig. How about you, Peter? Any nightmare or fun stories from the road?
I had two interesting ones. One was, and this is because it's not to get into too much, but this is like I had three brushes with death. One was with Bob on a car driving back from Oxnard, and there was a car going the wrong way, and he just missed us on the freeway, doing like 80 miles an hour this way, and we just realized it when he was like 20 feet away from us. We go, ah! Wow. And so then like that was on a Saturday or something like that.
Yeah.
And then on like a Sunday, the next day, I went I was mountain biking. I was doing it like every day, mountain biking, and I had an accident. I ripped all the skin off my chest. And then I had to leave the next day to go to Minneapolis to work rib ticklers, which is kind of apropos.
You totally rashed up your chest.
And that's a whole nother story, working with a giant scab.
He told me the story.
It was
a cast.
Was that the one where your nipple was hanging off?
Yeah, my nipple was hanging off. It's a whole long story.
Don't picture that, folks.
No, you have to picture it. It was just something.
But then the next week, so these are three brushes with death. Bob falling down the hill, and then I was in Seattle, where I had a big following there in Seattle, and I was working there, and I was staying at the Comedy Condo, and it's late at night on a Friday night, and there's or on a Thursday night, but it was late. It was like midnight or something, and there's a huge explosion next door. And so then I rocked me out of the bed, and I get out there and I look out the window and there's flames all over the place.
Whoa!
And there's a guy screaming, And so then I go, what the? And I figure someone's on fire. And so I grab the blanket off my bed, the comforter thing, and I start to go, and I think that might melt to him. So I dropped it, and I got my clothes on, and then I went out there, and there was already a guy who was on fire down in the parking lot, and they had put him out, and all these people were gathered around, and there were flames right next to my door. It was down my hallway.
And it wasn't the club.
No, it was just in flames.
No, but so that's pretty scary.
And so then I go back in and I call the club owner, Bob Davis, and I said, hey, the building's on fire, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to stay here. So anyway, I'll talk to you later, And I hung up because there's no cell phones.
Anyway.
Right.
So then I go downstairs, and I had to get through the flames, and I go downstairs, and the fire department shows up, and they ended up dragging like 4 people died,
Oh, no.
It was really tragic. All these people died. Apparently somebody had rolled a firebomb down there, a drug deal gone bad, and blew up the apartment next door to me. And so then they had it all taped off, and they're going to take people down. Sorry about this long story.
No, it's interesting.
Wow.
Speaks to the level of accommodations.
That's what I kept thinking. This sounds like a Bob
This
Davis.
is just the typical comedy.
This is a Bob Davis gig. Here, stay here.
And so I go down there, and I'm in the parking lot with all these people just watching the building burn, and they're putting it out. And then they're going to transport everybody that was unhoused to a facility to put them up. And I said, I don't want to do that. So the place, people had just died next door, and the place is taped up, and then the lights are all out, and it's wet with water and death
and smoke.
And I just, typical what a comic would do is I snuck back into the comedy condo, and I slept there that night.
No.
And then in the morning I wake up late because I was up late, and I open the window, and there's like reporters and camera crews down there, and they all point at me. There's a guy up there. So I snuck out the back, and I ended up staying there the rest of the week.
No way.
In this death house,
You're the only guy in the building?
Yeah, the club owner goes, Bob Davis goes, well, you want to stay at my place? And I go, nah, I'd rather actually stay here than at your place.
That is a scary story. Not only the previous 2 threats on your life, but imagine the fear. And then you went on and entertained. I mean,
I wouldn't call it.
Well, but still, what a tragic couple weeks.
That's what the audience was thinking.
No, I'm talking about where you live, not your set. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. But those are stories that will stay with you because in all these cases,
when people
almost died.
Yeah, I mean that's and I'm sure those kinds of things happen to everybody maybe one time or another in their life. But in show business,
that was Seattle. I have a Bob Davis story.
Oh, really?
Seattle.
Did you know Bob Davis, Scott?
I just knew of him.
Can we smear him?
We were peers, but we weren't friendly.
Sign any waivers? No, Bob. He was good to you, and you were. I remember
Peter.
Peter was popular up there, and that's saying a lot because the crowd either loved you or they hated. And so many times I did gigs with you, and I'm in the back and I'm just crying, and you're eating shit, and it made me. And then you're just pushing it, it just made me laugh even more. And then I'd go up and feel like a hack because I'm doing.
And I was jealous of you.
Oh God!
But you were getting the laughs. But what you're alluding to for the audience in the podcast land, Peter is the type of personality that's esoteric himself and puts himself out there. But I remember even from my club that if something didn't work, it was almost like you came at the audience twice as hard with something really bizarre.
It's like a comics comic.
Well, I thought that, okay, they're not going for it. And I realized, well, they're not going to go for anything then.
Right.
So I may as well just do what I want to do.
Have fun for yourself.
Yeah, and I would just entertain myself and watch the audience just stare at me.
No, folks, that wasn't part of his act, and entertaining himself.
And that rarely happened.
Rarely.
So the Bob Davis story, I'm booked in Seattle. The day I was getting on the plane, he calls me in the morning. I'm supposed to get on the plane in the afternoon. He goes, hey, Jess, so you're coming, right? Yeah, you got a plane ticket? Yeah, I got my plane ticket. All right. And we agreed to blah, blah, blah. I go, no, we agreed to blah, blah, blah. And we had this disagreement about money. And finally he says, well, then I guess you don't want to work. And he hangs up on me. I go, oh, geez. And I'm just fuming. And I already bought the plane ticket and I was going to have to eat that. So I thought, all right. And I had a few hours before I got to the airport. So I get on the phone. This was back in the landline days, no caller ID, nothing. And I'm calling the club. Hi, this is Billy Bucky, and we want to come see you. You got that comedy show tonight, and I did like a dozen of these calls in different voices. Oh, we got the comedy show, yeah, it's so funny for you. I like that one. The guy, and I mentioned my name in every one of them, and like one guy says, and it's going to be Jaz Kaner, right? Because I don't want you to switch on me. Last time they switched the comic, and we love that Jaz with the guitar thing. And next thing you know, the phone rings, and it's Bob, and he goes. He had called the club and how are reservations going, and he called the club and Bob calls me. He goes, "Yeah, maybe we could work something out."
You pulled that off?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, as a producer for over 20 years, nobody is, as far as I know, ever tried that, and I don't know if I would have fallen for it. But I think that's hilarious that you were able to make that work.
But at least you asked about the money. I told Scott earlier, I never asked about the money. My wife, Bernice, would go, "So what are you getting paid?" I go, "I don't know." We didn't really talk about it.
Yeah, you weren't, and you and I have had this discussion, but you weren't pushy enough about your value, and I'm just afraid that people took advantage of that. But no, it's true.
He's sitting right here, folks.
But it's in my book, 20 questions answered about being a stand-up comic. One of the things I try to make the point is this, being a stand-up comic is you're providing, or you are the product, and you have to sell that product. And even though we're all about entertaining and we're artists, you also have to have a business side, and you have to be able to negotiate and put value to what you're doing, and then contract it, whether verbally.
And
in those days, it was all verbal.
There's a lot of artists that can't do that. Mm-hmm. I mean, that goes in anything performance arts. There's a lot of talented people can't get their business act together, and
especially now. Like, I don't think I could survive these days.
Well, it has changed. Yeah. It's even tougher. I mean, there's lots of people that have joked on how cheap I was, and it was true that I was trained by other comics that it's not always about the money. It's about having good accommodations, treating them right, being respectful, and giving them the stage to do what they wanted to do. And so that was the direction I went. But you guys have all had lengthy careers in the industry. What do you think now as a professional you wish you knew 30 years ago when you got started?
YouTube.
Bob?
Why is it always Bob first?
We're on the
Bob. I should have sat at the other side of the table. I don't know. The thing when you start out is you don't know anything, and that might be something that saves you because you just try anything, anywhere. I mean, I've worked at places that I never would even go into. And I've opened for the Hells Angels. Oh, and they're nice people. After a while, if they don't stab you, it's Pete and I. We worked over in England where I bombed, where he killed every show, destroyed.
Where do you work in England? How come I never worked?
The Edinburgh Arts Festival.
Yeah. Pete just destroyed.
I think it was because they're about 10 years behind in their comedy over there, and I'm like 10 years behind.
Well, I think that the British sense of humor is also a little twisted. I mean, they still love men dressed as women, and they get off on their sense of humor is a little different than
our first night. Junglers, was that the name of that?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm up on stage, and I barely started, and some girl just looks at me and just goes, "Yo, bloody awful," and I go, "Really, bloody awful?" She goes, "Oh, that's right."
And this is just after we bombed Libya.
Yeah, right. We had the United States.
We were not well received.
Right, no, they did not like it. But then Pete went up and just destroyed. So, but let me get to your book. The advice in your book is very helpful. I wish I had that when I started out. Because one of the things, introduce yourself to a club owner, which is something I never did.
So, it's kind of important that the producer of the show and you are on the
Mitzi
same page.
I just kind of like, do you have to sit here and smoke next to me? So I didn't know that she was the owner and you shouldn't do that. So.
Well, Jaz, what do you know now that you wish you knew when you started? YouTube? Well, they didn't exist then, but
it didn't. Darn it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's out. I think YouTube and stuff like that it has opened up so many doors and opportunities for young comic. You could be a YouTube star and actually have draw, because I think for the most part, we didn't have any draw. No.
So what you're saying is because media has changed, that if things were different and you were starting over now, you could take advantage of social media and YouTube and do some self-promotion so that when you got to the club, there might be an audience waiting for you.
If you had an act.
If you had an act.
I think it was easier developing an act in our time because nobody saw you.
Yeah.
So you could develop and
That's
fail.
true.
I mean, other than that, I mean, at the core of it, I think is just confidence. You just got to have rock. And I didn't grow a lot of confidence for years in the beginning. I was like, just kind of, and this will be funny, and this will be funny, and here's that, and all right, got to go. Bye.
We earlier, and I don't want to, you commented that you were a hack. Or you felt like a hack. And
The sad part is none of us said, "Oh no, you were."
I was going to actually disagree because, I would say that you weren't as esoteric as Peter or talking about family and being childlike like Bob does, but you always please the audience. And even though you didn't have to have a degree to understand what you were doing, I think hack is a stretch because I've seen hacks and you weren't a hack.
You know,
you were a pleaser. The audience really was easy for them to get into you. See, Peter, very, very funny guy, but a whole different style. You have to kind of accept who Peter is and go with the flow, like we said earlier. And your act, it was, if anything, it was comedy right in their face. They didn't have a choice.
I was always, Bob and Jaz were two guys that I was sort of jealous of because Jaz was just so easy going on stage. It was so effortless, and it was so fun. And mine was more like, I gotta, oh my God, it was always just like crazy.
I left nothing for your entertainment.
And it was just so, and it was so good and entertainment and fun, and it is
easy.
And watching Jaz, I could picture him working anywhere,
right?
Right. Whereas I couldn't. I was it had to be like a theater or a club or something, and I couldn't go out and open. I couldn't open for people or anything either.
Because the audience has to be.
Now I'm a bulldog.
Right.
I know.
Yeah. So, Peter, going to you, what do you know now about being a stage entertainer that you wish you knew in the 80s when you were starting?
I wish I'd known enough to know that I should have gone through with the fireman exam in Ventura.
I'd changed careers.
I'd probably be a captain or a dead captain by now.
You'd have some retirement.
I'd have retirement. I'd have a family,
Medical coverage is important.
Didn't your dad once say, "Why don't you be a tree trimmer? You like to climb trees."
He was trying to set me up with a tree trimmer guy. This guy will take you in. Well, but no, I don't know if there's anything. Going back and looking at what I wish I had known, I wish I had been more. You know what? I never really knew what I was doing, so I could say I wish I had known what I was doing because everything was like an experiment for me because I didn't know what I was. I never knew exactly what my comedy was. I didn't know, should I wear a suit? Should I wear I didn't even know, just like when I first.
Well, you can't. What is it called? Pigeonhole it is difficult to put a finger on your type of humor.
Yeah.
But I thought that's what made you extra special. And I know it made it harder in certain audiences. Like I think it would be difficult for Peter Gualke to really rock Boise, Idaho.
Although he could,
I
folks.
did well in Boise, Idaho.
Yeah, did you? Yeah. Let's see, I'm wrong. But I think in a hip, more culture, city like LA, San Francisco, New York, that people would be more open to your type of humor.
Not New York.
No?
No. There are certain East Coast towns that I just North Carolina and stuff was good. It was weird.
The two places I remember for you was West Coast, the Long Beach Room. I remember you did well there.
Yeah. San Diego,
Seattle, and Chicago. Ken loved you in Chicago.
Yeah,
he always had you back.
Midwest, actually.
Did well, huh?
Yeah.
See, that kind of surprises me because your comedy is, as Bob said, more on the edge, and I would think that would be harder for the Midwesterners to get, but I'm wrong. Yeah. Well, then let me shift it around. So when you were starting off and just going from gymnast to stand-up comic to end up being a really talented comedy writer, was there somebody that you looked up to or admired that kind of gave you a path or gave you a reason to go into the industry?
Not really. I mean, I wasn't really drawn into the comedy world. I was just, all I was doing was going to put together, it really just started, I was putting together some impressions and stuff to go on the Gong Show. And so
The
I
Gong
had
Show
no
was big.
interest.
Everybody out there, just Google the Gong Show.
I didn't
You
know what
we're
a
talking
comedian
about.
was other than like Andy Kaufman or Steve Martin. That's about it. And so I was like really just focused on that $600 that I could win.
$600,
And that's
like
it.
scale
And that's
or
it. And so
That's
I
his
went
career goal.
So then I went to the Comedy Store. The only reason I went to the Comedy Store was to try out what I was going to do because I didn't know where else to try it out.
Did you have the cheese grater?
No, I didn't have the cheese grater. I did the wrestling. I did the wrestling routine, and I got a standing ovation. I think it's
Oh yeah, that's amazing.
first time on stage, a standing
Wow.
ovation.
But that gives you confidence
this is easy.
and encouragement.
Yeah, but then I still didn't want to be a comedian, and I never went on the Gong Show either. So I was a total failure. and I ended up just traveling like for a year. I went to Europe and stuff. Came back, and out of boredom, I go because I didn't want to do anything else. I decided maybe I'll go to that McCabe's and do a talent thing just for kicks. So, and even when I was doing stand up, because when we started, working Westwood and stuff, there was the ultimate goal. There were no clubs.
There's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
You were really doing it out of the
Because you liked it. It's
fun,
fun.
and also thinking, maybe I'll get on a TV
It certainly
show.
wasn't for the money.
It wasn't for the money. And so I think back then, like in the 80s and stuff, I think that if you look at acts now, there are some unique acts now. But nothing like what came out of the 80s.
Oh no!
I mean,
you mentioned Andy Kaufman. I mean, talk about unique.
Some of the more unique acts were these middle acts that couldn't be headliners, or just didn't quite have it to be a headliner, but they were odd, weird, really unique acts, and I think it was because we didn't have social media, we didn't have anywhere to go to kind of form what we were doing. We were just doing whatever came out.
You said it quite poignantly. You were experimenting to see what would work. Jazz, did you have anybody? Now, as a comic musician, there weren't a lot of those. Like, I don't ever remember seeing a comic musician on the early Tonight shows with Carson and stuff.
Well, part of the problem through the 80s with TV and me and doing song parodies like a hack.
Oh, no, your song parody. So what you're saying is you had copyright issues.
Copyright.
I didn't even think of that.
Copyright issues, yeah.
So for those of you that aren't aware, Jazz, again, one of the funniest headliners ever to work the club, had his guitar and had some really hilarious takes on famous songs.
Yeah.
But it didn't even occur to me that you would have copyright issues that kept you from doing things like
every
the
time,
Tonight
so
Show.
you get this cable shot, we want you to do it, but you can't do the guitar stuff. Oh, unless it's original. Okay. So it forced me to come up with a couple of original. They were never really knockout funny, they were.
Well, but it's so much easier to make fun of something everybody knows.
Right.
I mean, that's how you bring the audience in.
It's a good template. You give them a known, like the beginning of Sweet Home Alabama, and bam, everybody knows it. That you get applause just starting the song,
Because people could relate, and that's
then
so
you
important.
Turn around and you're singing it as Jack Nicholson. Wow, that guy's original.
Well, so were there any? So if you didn't have any comic musicians, you could kind of look towards. Was there anybody in comedy that you aspired to be, or thought, hey, they're doing it right?
In the beginning, I guess it was Steve Martin, Robin Williams, who got to hang out and meet and everything later in the day, later on. Musically, wow, no, I don't. I'm trying to think of anyone. Yeah, no.
Okay, well, that's okay. I mean, as we already said, you guys are of an age and had the experience that you really had to start off with that lump of coal, and it took time and work and effort over, many stage presentations to find your act, to find your humor.
I'm still looking.
And the fact that you didn't see somebody and say, hey, that's what I want to be, just exemplifies the whole point of how interesting this art form is that you can start from a total, hey, I have a funny idea and take it somewhere.
Yeah, that's
Bob, you were I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's why, like what Peter was saying about the 80s, with the guys were just, it was a clean slate. Nobody had really laid the law down. you could use props, you could do stuff, I got a wacky idea. I wonder if this will work. Boom, take it up and let it fly,
Right.
Well, and
but
really
that takes work time after time.
There really wasn't that many people doing it either. I mean, you would go to certain towns and see the same people. So you'd see the same group of
and then all of a sudden you can make a living because there was supply and demand. Like the clubs were just growing like mushrooms all over, and they needed talent, talent.
Also, the clubs, like nowadays, you probably have to. The club isn't going to sell the show. It's going to be an act that goes in,
right?
That's really going to fill it, unless it's a big club, kind of a famous club like the Improv or something. But back then, it was just you could go into any town and they'd be packed. Just to see whatever was up there.
It was definitely the wave of entertainment,
like
the 80s especially.
People went to Laughs Unlimited just to see comedy.
In the early days, nobody knew Gary Shandling, Bob Saget, all the you guys that all got to work there. Seinfeld was working for me years before the Seinfeld Chronicles, and nobody would know, but they knew if they came to the club, it was an A room and they would see somebody funny, and then it turned out later, oh wow, I saw that guy before Full House or before Seinfeld or before the Tonight Show in the case of Leno. Bob, you were kind of slipping in there. You didn't follow anybody that was a professional that you thought, this is what I want to do? Somebody you looked up to in comedy?
I don't look up to anybody. Oh, except for Peter, because
we all look up.
Peter's pointing at himself here.
Like everybody. I mean, I love Bill Cosby when I was a kid because man, that guy can get chicks. But Steve Martin was one of my favorites. But no, I mean, starting out, you wanted to be original. That's what I thought. I thought that was the whole idea. You got to kind of be who you are.
And the only comics we saw were like on The Tonight Show or Ed Sullivan.
Right.
Kid,
Really, The Tonight Show and Ed Sullivan was it. But you're bringing up a good point, Bob. As the producer, and I would see different people at the open mics and on my stage all the time, and there was a line that had to be drawn by me as the producer that here's somebody that's doing something original in their own way, which is much preferable to me. I saw a lot of people, by the way, Jazz, that I would have called hacks, that were trying to literally, I mean, I had people come in and do Cosby's act or off an album or something, or come in and just try to totally copy or imitate somebody you might have seen on the Ed Sullivan Show. And you go, that's...
Right, you don't know any better. You're thinking, wow, that guy... He knows what he's doing. I'm going to do that too. GC with the gang and the man.
Well, I didn't take it that way. I took it that they hadn't done the work and they weren't what I wanted to do.
We all know a guy, Pat Hannafin.
Yeah.
I'm sure we all, because you guys are surfers.
Yeah.
Pat Hannafin.
Yeah.
He's a surfer comic.
One of the most original acts I'd ever seen. I mean, just a perfect character. But then he slowly over the years... He developed into like a regular comic.
Yeah. He wanted to be a great MC.
Right.
You told me. I think you told me that because I never saw him in the early days.
My gosh.
He was a wild man.
I saw Pat. Really? I saw Pat at Westwood Comedy Store, and I was like, oh my, long hair, and I was going like, this guy's like fully formed, and he just started, and you're going like, oh my God, this guy's going to be huge. And next thing you know, he's like, I want to become a really good MC. And you're going, what? Shaved his head,
I'll be like everybody else.
Got a nice haircut.
So he lost it, but
that's wild. Yeah. Well, you brought up another subject that we have. Bob and I talked about this before you got here. We have to discuss briefly surfing, because here in the Comedy Roundtable, not only do we have a tremendously talented professional comics, but Jaz Kaner and Peter Gualke are lifelong surfers. Now, Jaz, I know you learned while living in Hawaii. Yeah. Peter, were you near the beach here in Southern California, or where did you learn?
Grew up in Venice.
Oh, Venice Beach.
Just surfed at Bay Street, Santa Monica, and El Porto.
So a little different than Hawaii.
Yeah.
The water's a little warmer.
More garbage in the water.
Yeah, you don't sink. There's so much float sand around.
So comedy
that's why we became such good buddies for so many years. Like back in the beginning, Steve Odekirk told, I go, who do you know? I was talking about surfing to him, and he's like, oh, you should talk to Peter Gualke. I go, yeah, I know who that is.
Yeah, we met through Rock.
And
Calendars.
yeah.
Well, I just wanted to bring it up because I was curious if being a stand-up comic where you're moving around and doing different gigs, how you were able to take your fun sport of surfing and work it into your schedule. Did being the free form entertainment of stand-up allow you more surfing time, or did get in the way of
my
it?
career. because I wasn't willing to give up surfing at like 6 a.m. So I would
couldn't do a 2 a.m. gig.
I would get spots at the Improv for like 1:30 in the morning, and I just wouldn't go and then they'd stop booking me, and then I'd go back and get in their graces again, and then I wouldn't go again because the surf was going to be good, Yeah. So it was tough. When I worked at Saturday Night Live, I was out there back and forth, and I would be leaving because I would go fly back and forth, So I'd be leaving to go back to work to New York, and the waves would be perfect. And then I'd show up, come back home, and they would just suck the whole time I was here. So it was brutal,
That's rough on you're having to choose between your love and your comedy.
Well, there's really no choice.
We used to book things just to go surf.
Yeah.
Like, did you ever do Florida with me? I don't think I ever got you into the Florida.
But we did Hawaii.
We did Hawaii a couple times, I think.
Ilokai
and we did up the coast to Ventura. We did the San Francisco comedy competition. And we took, I remember we put our boards in the car. I don't know if we ever did it. We never found anything, but we had the boards in the car. It was a plan.
So you took them to Hawaii, where you knew which beaches where to go for good surfing.
Well, we were working at the clubs out there at the time, And
but how great to be able to surf during the day and entertain at night.
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
And then I moved to Kauai for a brief time.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But that would never work. It would never work because
Kauai doesn't have
the grid.
You said Kauai, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's not the nightlife there that would sustain that.
Yeah.
Is the surfing any good there?
Yeah. Yeah,
I didn't know. I'm from the Big Island, and I know Oahu's got some places. But
some places
got a few.
Does it? Yeah. Okay. All right. So surfing and stand-up comedy right here on this podcast, folks.
I know how to
you
float.
Heard it. And Bob floats. I'm sorry I didn't include you. Bob, any surfing?
Right. Actually, Peter rode me once. That sounds bad. That sounds really bad.
Wait a minute, he rode you?
I was struggling in the water. I was caught in a riptide.
We were at Zuma Beach.
And he came over, got me, and I don't know how I did it. The waves
kind of
came
pumping.
in.
It was pretty big.
Right.
And Borchers went out, and I think Tim Rose. I was helping you in,
right?
I went back out and I helped like Tim Rose back in.
Wow! So you were like the lifeguard.
And then I go out there, and John Borchers. I look out there. Borchers is way out in the middle of the ocean. I go,
he was just floating on his back and just going further and further.
And so I swim out to him, and he goes, and he didn't have his glasses on, and he couldn't see. He goes, I don't know where I am. So I go, you gotta come in,
Oh, wow. Peter Gualke, the lifesaver. Well, as I kind of trying to head down wrapping this up, you guys have all had great lifelong careers. I'm going to start with Bob. You were a professional comic. You were a headliner. You'd done some television, but your children came along and you kind of shifted to a full-time dad, and you still do some comedy writing and you still perform occasionally. But was that pivoting of your career difficult? How did your career in comedy
not
affect your future?
It wasn't difficult at all.
No.
Bernice said, "You want to do this or you want to do this?" I go, "Well, let's do this because this way I don't have to call all these people and try to get work. I'm already here, so why not?" Plus, I get to see my kids do sports and all that other stuff. But that was an easy call for me.
Great kids too.
Oh, yeah, amazing kids, and it was a no-brainer that you Bernice is a legal secretary. She has a solid career,
right? And I could work around town, but even after a while, it's like I would get calls. Hey, can you show up here? And it's like, well, I got a game to go to. I really don't.
I gotta get the kids to
so I just kind of phased it out.
So you made that choice, and now that we're all over 50, how would you feel comedy affected your life? Did it open doors? Did it change you at all? Or what would you say you're appreciative of having your career in stand-up?
Meeting good people like this. Good people like this around the table.
The people.
Well, yeah, the people. And it was just a fun job to have for a long time. And comedy was always in my life. Like I told you, I grew up in a rough neighborhood. So I was constantly trying to get out of fights.
By being the funny guy.
Right. And going through high school, I did a lot of theater with the Hardin Brothers and those people. And it saved me. So.
Well, there's been a lot of different answers to that question because everybody has gone in a different direction.
Blue?
Sorry?
Is the answer blue?
Blue.
Well, that's an answer. I thought
How did it change your life? Blue?
blue. Blue's always been good for me. That's a great color
That's a
on
good
me.
answer.
Okay, that threw me off. All right. Jaz Kaner, comic musician. We talked about your headlining for many years. You did a lot of television spots, but apparently not with the music, probably with the coconuts, right?
Coconuts.
Yeah, the
Barbie
Hawaii
dolls.
bit. Being from Hawaii gave you a hook, right?
Yeah.
But you did do comedy on the road on TV, and you were in the movie Adventures of Ford Fairlane.
Woo,
Big
blockbuster.
corporate comic. Did you do cruises too? I believe.
I slugged through everything.
Yeah, but comedy gave you a career to that point, and you were the 3 times you were in the top 10 of the San Francisco Comedy Competition, which I didn't know.
Imagine that.
That's not easy to do. However, because we're good friends, I know that you pivoted. You took your second or your first love, surfing, and turned it into a very successful business, Banzai Surf Company on the beaches of Southern California.
Businessman.
Business. Business owner.
How did you, what you learned, did anything you learned being a comic and showcasing yourself as a product, did any of that help you in starting your business and building your very successful surf company?
Lots, yeah. I mean, I guess because I was a comic and I had filed, I knew what a 1099 form was. I thought I knew everything about being a proprietor. And there was a whole lot of other stuff like I never had employees as a stand-up comic. So getting a crew and learning to share the workload and all that. But
delegating. You can't, as a stand-up comic,
exactly,
you can't delegate
don't
your
delegate
humor.
anything, no.
Yeah.
Oh, and getting back to an earlier question, I'd say if I would have learned, if I wish I'd known at the beginning, representation. I don't know if any of us really had any blockbuster. No. Yeah, I had a manager for a while, but managers are expensive. They can only do so much, and she was grinding me on money. Okay, and sometimes I think, maybe I should have kept the manager. Because, and here's what I tell new comics. I go, it's a lot better if you have, rather than you going, trust me, I'm funny, you have someone else saying, trust me, he's funny.
Right. Well, it goes back to what we talked about before, that the community of comedy, Peter was saying that a lot of times you would get gigs because one comic who did well at a club would tell the producer of that club, hey, so-and-so is somebody you should look at. And so you have somebody doing that third-party sale. And what you're making sure young comics know is that there is an advantage to having a manager or a spokesperson, representation outselling you as opposed to you doing it yourself, because everybody goes, well, I'm great. El Grande Bandejo.
I believe it's El Grande Bandejo.
Sorry.
Pendejo.
Pendejo.
Yeah, that's one of Peter's lines.
Actually, Banzai Surf Camp Surf School is like the most fun surf camp you'll ever go to.
Oh,
that's great. Wait. Let's Banzai Surf School. Okay,
and
that's
it's because of Jazz.
Here, you get a sticker. Here. You get a sticker.
Man, I finally got one of those
stickers.
stickers.
Have a sticker.
Well, I think it's interesting, though, that you mentioned that the business of comedy helped you at least start off the business of surf school. I mean, it gave you you were able to pivot from one to the other. And according to Peter,
getting back to your question,
you brought your humor with you.
And sometimes too much so.
Oh, really?
I'll get people, and the instructors have to throttle. Oh, he's a bit of a comedian. I'll do little. Oh, where are you from? Wichita? Okay, we'll talk slower.
I've done that. I've got my old MC stuff, and I'll do that.
Yeah.
It's, you're from Lodi. I'll talk a little slower, and they usually kind of take a beat. Oh,
yeah.
Well, if they know that, if not, it's like, what did he say? What did he say? Step outside.
And this is the 16-year-old surf instructor who is telling them that, sorry, just gotta.
Ignore the old guy.
Sorry about him.
Ignore him. He's wacky.
That's funny though. But Peter brings up something I didn't really even think about. But running Banzai Surf School, you having a humorous background and an understanding of comedy probably made you as a teacher of surfing more entertaining, more enjoyable than Bob's Surf Shack, where it's some long-haired blonde guy.
Why is it Bob?
That's always
Okay,
wow.
Skip's teaching surfing is going, okay, you wait for a wave and you push up. And
No, go back to Bob, because that's what I would say. Hey, just go out there. You can figure it out.
Except when Jazz is teaching the surf class and then saying, boy, the city ordinances, I just can't.
Oh, yeah. I have to bite my tongue sometime because I'm like, it's been, almost 12 years now since we opened, and I'm tired.
Hey,
Well,
did the spill
we're all getting to that point.
Did the oil spill hurt you?
Oh, yeah. Oil spill shut us down. I thought we were going to be shut down all of October, got an attorney, the whole thing. And it turned out to be like 10 days.
Yeah, they got that cleaned up pretty quick, but it wasn't as much oil as
You
they
couldn't
thought.
tell your students that's just a natural wetsuit.
Yeah,
Just
Gleason.
go out, it's a natural
Sheen,
wetsuit.
it's good for you.
Well, keeping on with the theme, Peter Gualke, by the way, everybody, is an ex-professional gymnast. He was a headliner at clubs from coast to coast and apparently in England. He is now a professional comedy writer for both TV and movies. He has his own movie called Strange Wilderness. And as I mentioned earlier, he's got a new book out called Unseen America with Volume 2 coming out soon. Look for it on Amazon. But Peter, so this is a little bit easier than a surf school maybe, but pivoting from stand-up comedy to professional writer, was that easy for you? Did you find that transition?
It was like everything else. Everything I've ever done has just been sort of like falling and just keep falling forward, Like you don't know. I had no idea I was going to do this. It was more like after doing stand-up for so long, I just realized, well, that's only going to go so long. So I got to start writing.
Did you start up as like a punch-up guy, or were you writing right off the bat?
Scripts right away.
Yeah, I was. Well, I got a video camera and then I wrote up the video pieces, and then I slowly got into where I wrote a script. Never finished one, and then I got hired on Saturday Night Live, sending a couple sketches in. And then, but it was like, what's funny about when you're a stand-up, you're sort of in a way, it's kind of a childlike thing, It's kind of like you're out there having fun. It's like you're up there maybe 1 hour a night and you're having drinks with everyone. It's a party for everybody, And so you're sort of gallivanting around the country, No real responsibilities, and then suddenly
Sound like my wife.
Yeah, exactly. This is the complaint. And then you end up like you write something, and then suddenly, it sells. Next thing you know, it's like, you're fantastic, and you have
like
nothing.
This delay.
All you are is just some goofy moron, bouncing around. And next thing you know, they think you know something. And so that
expectation of your abilities, they projected that, he's a comedy writer.
Yeah, and so you're sort of thrown into these places where you never really imagined maybe you'd be, and it's too late to try to worry about it. You're just doing it.
Yeah, because you're going with the flow. You're in it.
Yeah. So so for me, it wasn't like a planned thing, except for maybe writing a script and going, I hope this is good, But it wasn't a planned thing for me to. If I had known what I was going to do, then I would have maybe moved into different directions in writing.
Earlier, right?
Maybe some more TV or things like that. But I just never did that. I always just sort of did whatever came up next.
Well, and I think you put it really well that you kind of fell into it each time. But what I was curious about was when I say pivot is that's a huge transition from going kind of this free flowing. I'm working all over these different clubs as a stand-up comic to being a writer is almost like a 9-to-5 job. In fact, the writers I know put in more than 8 hours a day. And it's usually alone time. You're in your studio or in your bedroom with a typewriter or a pen and paper and you're writing. Those changes, was that difficult or did it come easy to you?
No, I think like when you're a stand-up comic and you're traveling around, finances are always sort of precarious because
it's very hand to mouth.
I'd book like maybe, I'd have like a gig, 3 months down the road, then I'd have another one. And you're always trying to like, oh God, I need money. Who can I call? Then you call up somebody. Can I get out there? So you're always like, you never know where the next check's going to come from. And the same thing is like with then the transition to writing, you write one thing and you sell it, but then you have to start over again. Like every time you're writing something, it's like a brand new thing. And so your back's against the wall, constantly wondering, man, if I don't sell something,
You have
So
to
it's
recreate
necessity.
yourself each time, which is a
Yeah.
great analogy. When you're a comic, you have an idea, you hone and work that idea, but you're doing it over and over and over
Yeah.
Right.
until it's a diamond. It goes from
That's why writing for television would have been great, because if you get on a show that lasts 5 years, you're in that thing, and then once you get into that club, you're basically bouncing around to different shows if you're lucky, and and so there's a little more security in that. But with screenwriting, which is really pretty much all I've done, is it's just one thing to the next,
And they're
it's
big.
like,
wow. And then once you sell it, you
okay,
have to
now
start
what?
over.
And it's like a clean slate. You may have some ideas, but it's like, okay, now what am I going to write to?
I will
I got to
say-
support,
Wow.
got to support a kid. Got to,
That sounds a lot more challenging than I guessed. I was thinking the problem was going from the free-loving stand-up comedy, drinking at night, sleeping in late, to this responsibility of having to put out so many words in a day or a week or a month to complete a project. I was thinking of the logistics of it, and you're making a really interesting point. You have the imagination to totally recreate from scratch each time.
yeah, and I'm also makes it harder too. Is that I'm really lazy. And so,
I don't know though.
Or out surfing.
You've got
I'll
a
sit
better
around.
Yeah, you've got a better writing work ethic than I do. You have a system. I'm going to surf at 6 a.m. and then I'm going to come home and I'm going to write for 5 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, at least that's how you told me. And
But some of that though is
You might have been lying.
a lot of that. I think one thing that's helped me is that I'm not that smart, and so I've never really tried. I never tried to. I never worry about anything. Like I'm like a complete idiot. So like I don't like think about I need to do this to get that. I just go, I don't know what's going on. I'm an idiot. And so I don't worry about things too much. And so that's always been like everything's going to be okay, That's
Well,
just-
you've been through, and I'm going to equate this to my life. I'm an entrepreneur. I've gone bankrupt. I've been sued. I've had all the downs. I've been rich a couple
That's
times.
live. That's live.
Yeah, it's up and down. But at our age anyway, you get that wisdom that I'll be okay. Something's going to come up, and there's a confidence you get out of that. That I think that we all, through this industry of stand-up comedy, learn that, you may be going paycheck to paycheck, but once you reach that level of professional, at least you can count on, well, if I get that gig, I know I can perform. Or if I get this writing job, I know I can complete it. And I think that that's a lesson that's like a lot of jobs, it's learned over time. And it's just exciting and impressive to have you guys here with me on this podcast and call you guys friend. Thanks for joining me on this show. Before we head off, Bob, I'm coming back to you. Any final words for the podcast audience?
Goodbye.
Well, thanks for sharing a deep thought. Jaz Kaner.
Peter Gualke, the book is Unseen America, with a foreword by Dana Carvey.
So get out, go to Amazon, and then there'll be another one coming out, right,
in March.
Peter?
Yes, volume 2. And
Well,
then
this
volume
is going to
3.
air
So I just
after
passed
March,
that to
so
you.
it'll.
I'm like a team player, man.
No, look at that.
This is going to come out
I got nothing to sell.
after March, so it's going to be the book will be out. So go to Amazon. You can get either Unseen America or what's the title of the second book?
Volume 2.
Unseen America, Volume 2. Okay. And
then-
Jaz, I know that you're running Banzai Surf School. I
Banzai
know
Surf School
we've
is
talked
open
about
all
you.
year long. BanzaiSurfSchool.com.
We're,
Please don't call me.
use the email or the website. But and I know you've talked about semi-retiring and passing it on to your amazing family. But whatever happens, Banzai Surf School is still going on.
Yep.
So if you guys are in Southern California, want to learn how to surf, go with the best, go with the funniest, go with Banzai Surf School. Hey, you guys have been great. Thanks so much for joining us. Bob Worley, Jaz Kaner, Peter Gualke, you guys are great. Thank you very much. Everybody in the audience, thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with another great show. And hey, tell a friend, rate us, and thanks a lot. We'll see you next week. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Stand-Up Comedy, Your Host and MC. For information on the show, merchandise, and our sponsors, or to send comments to Scott, visit our website at www.standupyourhostandmc.com. Look for more episodes soon, and enjoy the world of stand-up comedy. Visit a comedy showroom near you.